Good morning. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Strategic Planning, Information Technology, and Transportation Committee meeting on September 25th, 2019. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I would like to move that we amend the agenda and add, I guess, with part of the transportation update, I would like to go into closed session to discuss personnel matters.
Or would you like to do that after the transportation update?
Yeah, let's do it after transportation.
So that'll be after item number 6. We're going to add 6A. But at the very end of the... let's just do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
All right. We're going to put the amendment at the end of the agenda. We're going to go into closed session for discuss personnel.
So is that 9A?
9A. That'd be 9A. Any other changes to the agenda?
No.
I need a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
All right, second. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, first item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 22nd, 2019 meeting. And I believe we had a couple changes. Put in the cost of the McKinney-Vento transportation per student. And also we had some issues.
I don't think it was McKinney-Vento. I think it was the IB transportation.
The IB transportation, that's right. And also having...
everything was perfectly fine with McKinney-Vento.
Yeah. It's for the IB transportation cost per student, and also we had some issues we discussed where some parents weren't comfortable having one student along with one driver in a car, so that would need to be added to the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
All right, need a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next item on our agenda is the strategic plan.
Okay, you have 2 items in your packet under the strategic plan. The first one is an update document that on page 1 includes the current initiatives that are being implemented as well as the executive sponsor and owner. The second page is a schedule of the presentation updates for 2019, the calendar year. Over the last month, Cabinet has been discussing which initiatives are complete, which are ongoing, which can be moved from inactive into active. Essentially, there's only 2 initiatives that are actually completed. The others are perpetually ongoing because they've kind of been infused into the fabric of the district and the work of the district. And so we've moved 2 up into active status. And those are 2 that one that Dr. Barnes is working on and one that Dr. Breedlove is working on. And so otherwise we're continuing to kind of move forward on the initiatives. There's about 5 that are still left to be incorporated into the active status. So we seem to be moving right on schedule with those. And then there's also in your packet a presentation PowerPoint that will be the presentation for the board at the October meeting. And Dr. Bowers and Dr. Breedlove are here if you have any questions about that initiative that will be presented to the board.
Is that who will be presenting at the October meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And what are the 2 initiatives that are complete?
One is marked on here as complete, and I didn't move it off because it was completed not that long ago, and that's the purchase of the RTI stored. I'm sorry, it's the first one that's listed as phase 2. It's under theme C, and it's establish a pre-K-12 early warning system.
Okay.
The other one is one that Dr. Bulla was working on. Let me just pull it up so that I can tell you for sure. So I don't. It was to develop a 5-year recruiting and hiring plan to maintain a workforce of effective and qualified professionals.
Okay.
The two that were added were designing and implementing a plan to improve family organizations at schools, and that's Tahira Stalberts and Cynthia Hogston's. And then equipping teachers to provide learning approaches that foster critical thinking, and that's Dr. Barnes and Casey Rimmer.
Okay.
So those were added just this month. But cabinet, as I said, have been working on this for about the last month or so, looking at it in our weekly morning meetings to see which ones need to be moved.
Okay. Is there any more questions about the strategic plan?
No.
Okay. We look forward to hearing you at our next board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the technology update. Yeah.
Mine as well.
Yeah, I like it too. So,
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I like Jason's enthusiasm.
Yeah, I'm excited because I get to present to you 3 updates about some initiatives that we have going on in our district. In your packets on this agenda, the first one is a Sprint 1 million, which is our, if you remember that is our wireless devices that we provide to students for hotspots from home so they have internet connectivity. So last year in May, we surveyed our middle school 8th grade students and surveyed our high school students to determine eligibility. Sprint certified our district and gave us an unlimited, really, amount of devices. They didn't give me a cap. They said whoever's eligible, we'll give them a device. So this year, over the summer, we got 5,671 devices in, and we supplemented those, inventoried them, put them out in the districts, and so far we have completed 5 schools. As at the end of this week, we've knocked out 5 of the high schools, and we'll have the rest of them done within the next 2 weeks. They're already been inventoried, assigned to students, and given out. So as a total for this year, we'll have 6,621 wireless hotspots out in our district. For last year, students did not have access to internet when they left the schoolhouse or have reliable internet. Now they have a reliable connection to do their work and access to digital tools.
So how many again? 6 up?
It's the total is going to be 6,621 total. That's between last year's 950 and this year's 5,671 that we added.
Wow.
So we've already completed 5 schools and plan to finish the rest in the next 2 weeks.
And I really just want to publicly commend Jay and his team. I know I've said it before, but this is a very unique for a school system to have Sprint that basically has endorsed us as a certified district. And they've actually asked him for his playbook on implementation and rollout. So just wanted to say a big thank you to Jay for removing barriers for our kids in terms of internet access at home. And it's been a fabulous addition to the district this year to get to all high schools.
Okay. There's no questions. Yes, ma'am.
I agree, Jay. I think you and your team have done an outstanding job on this on this initiative. I had a question. So if we have a lot of students who travel for away games and during the week and maybe getting home really, really late, if they keep that device in their backpack, they can do their studies while they're traveling, correct?
Yes, ma'am. That's correct. It's a wireless hotspot. It's similar to your phone where you turn it on and you just charge it up at home just like you would your phone and then disconnect it and carry it with you on a trip. It connects to cellular towers, so they're not limited to any geographical boundaries.
I know we have a significant number of high school students that do travel to represent our schools. And I think as long as they understand, if they are aware of this, keeping that device in their backpack, I think it is a wonderful opportunity when those students are getting home very late in the evening, that they could continue their studies on the activity bus or even, at their sporting events when they're not on the field.
Yes, ma'am. It's a great opportunity for our students to have access when they're away from school. And that's part of the initiative to make sure you always are connected, to resources.
It's a great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The second one I want to cover is projection refresh. If you remember, we proposed a projection refresh across the district. These are the projection devices, the TVs, the smart panels in classrooms. So there's 2,406 classrooms, and this is over a 5-year period, so we're in year 1. And we have completed 20 of the 53 schools have been completed now. And we will have the next ones done hopefully by the fall, in late fall. We are now moving to a night shift where we don't impede instruction by working from 2 in the afternoon till midnight to do these installs in the schools, so that when teachers leave for the day, they come back the next day and the new device is already there and the old device has been removed. We provided some links to PD to use these new devices, and they are and the feedback I'm getting back from my instructors is they love them. They're bright. They can teach with the lights on now. Students can see them. They're not worried about bulbs or fading or, clarity. So the feedback we're getting is they want to thank the board for the support and providing these devices to them. And it's a much needed improvement in the classroom.
I do see where Jay Parker is trending on Twitter now too, with your with the remarks, or with basically the the excitement that the teachers have. So I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. I try to follow up behind to ensure that the work is done properly and that our teachers are equipped to be able to use them the next day. So I go by and survey the teachers and see if there's any assistance they need. Can I help you with anything? Our team's out there working with them. So we're working hard to make sure that this is successful.
So you said Jay Parker is trending?
Yeah.
Well, I hope you did see his self-proclaimed nickname as the Superman of technology is what he's referred to himself as. So
Yeah. Now I'm embarrassed.
Is there
give him a cape.
is there any problems with the teachers coming in the next day or anything like that? And having
None at all.
hiccups? Okay.
I've been, as I myself and our team go around and look at these devices, teachers love them. I mean, the feedback has been tremendously positive. And the problem is the others want theirs now too.
Yeah.
And it's coming. I tell them it's coming. Just give us a few years and we'll have everybody
I
replaced.
think the biggest area of focus now is really not on the hardware. It's on the staff development that comes with it, and making sure that our teachers are very well equipped, not just to use it, but to use it effectively and to train our kids on how to use the device. So I know that Jay has been working very closely with Casey Rimmer on a PD plan, and teachers are coming. These sessions are selling out every month with a waiting list. So
Trending.
So the only question I had about this
Yes, ma'am.
is how did you determine how many devices were allotted per school?
We sent a survey out to the principals because the first year we wanted to address the greatest need in the schoolhouse. So we asked principals, tell us your greatest need. What rooms are in dire need of refreshing first? Give us that list, and here's what you get to choose from. So they provided everything you see on that list was provided by the principals. So they responded back and said, I need 3 TVs, I need 5 TVs, I need roller panels. They told us first, and then that's the way we allotted out the difference.
I mean, because it was interesting to see the numbers
You will.
across the board.
Yes, ma'am. So we collected feedback, and then we addressed those greatest needs the first year. The following years, we would just submit the devices to the schools and let them put them in classrooms, because eventually all of them are done. We just wanted to address the greatest.
So it wasn't based off student population or, how big or how small the school was. You just took a survey from the principals.
We did, and within that framework for that survey, it was K through 2 are getting mounted touch panels, because at those younger levels, they touch the boards and like it, and we mounted them lower. In the 3 through 12, we put smart TVs, 70-inch HD TVs, and then the only thing that's based on population was roller smart panels were based on a 1 to 75 ratio in 3 to 12.
Okay.
So that's to basically supplement the TVs in the classroom. So really, you're sharing one smart panel between 2 classrooms.
And from an implementation standpoint, are those done already? The
20
rolling ones?
20 of the schools have been completed so far. We're working on the rest of them, and we'll hopefully have all those done by late fall.
Great.
Very nice.
Thank you. Our last one is something that's near and dear to my heart, cybersecurity. So I get excited when I talk about this, so I'll try to slow down. But we developed a roadmap for the cybersecurity, and I want to talk first about our benchmark scoring. So we asked a third-party company called Kenna to do some intrusion testing on our networks, to look at our servers, look at our IP addresses, to see if they could get in and where the areas of vulnerability exist and where we could improve. And so we contracted with them. It was a free service offered by MCNC of North Carolina. And with that free service, that intrusion testing gave us a benchmark score. We started out at 780 as our score. It's on a scale of 0 to 1,000, 1,000 being the worst, 0 being the best. There was no industry out there that was in a 0 to 400 range. Everybody was 400 and up because there's always patches and always upgrades and always new servers being installed. We were at 780. Over the last month, we dropped us to 620. And over the next 60 days, we should be in that 300 to 400 range. We should be one of the lowest in North Carolina as far as risk for intrusion. Because all you can do is prepare yourself for and prevent as much as you can. And you want to be the best in the country, really, for protecting our confidential data, protecting our staff, protecting our students. So we should be down in that 300 to 400 range really soon. And my one-on-ones with Dr. Hulan, I keep him up to date with where we are with our cybersecurity. Also, that with those intrusion testings, we developed a timeline progression. And in your packets on page 4, it'll just basically show you a familiar Chevron type path that'll show you from now to the end of the school year what items we will address, the inventory of our electronics, the patches and the software, how we're putting in new VLANs and new pieces of work. But we'll have a detailed strategic plan around this as we move forward in case there is a breach, what we're doing to prevent the breach, and if there is, what's our preventative action and actions if it does happen. So as you can see in the country, there's been 122 successful successful breaches into school districts, K-12 areas over this last year. The FBI says that school districts K-12s are the #1 target right now. They're trying to come in on the financial staff, impersonating our superintendent. They're doing their best to try to get into our district. So we're preparing for it, working hard, but just really want to protect our district and our students and staff.
Do we have any campaigns, any practice campaigns that we have in practice? And what I mean by that is, are we sending out any proactive emails that are a phishing type of email, but it's an internally done one to see how we actually do on that?
Yes, to be honest, we did. We did it within our technology group, and some of our team did not pass and actually clicked on the link because it came from me and impersonated me and looked like me. But it was really just a spoof email. So part of that cybersecurity awareness, we've been in front of the child nutrition group, our bookkeepers, our data managers, our principals. So we're constantly making others aware of it. We implemented a 90-day password reset so that forces. In the past, there wasn't one. We pushed those in there, and now we've locked down all of our VPNs, which is our virtual private networks. If you want to access Union County resources from home or outside the district, those we put in with the encrypted passwords and secure lockdowns. And so far, those are some of the practices that we've already done besides the patches and upgrades.
So coming out of that test, did we do any quick pointers? Always look at the sender's email address.
We did, and that was what you're mentioning is exactly what we were performing in front of the principals and our data managers, is saying, here is a real email. What does this look like to you? And this is the things that we look for. Okay. So we gave samples out, and I think there was great, there's a great awareness occurring, and we're just trying to make people aware that there's a risk out there, and these criminals are trying to get in, and you need to ensure that what you're clicking on. And also with that, we changed our headers to say in bold red letters, this is an external email. Mm-hmm. This did not come from within the district. That's another step of just making people aware that this was not sent by someone within our district.
Great. Are you doing any type of social engineering training, or you try to call a teacher and get their password or anything like that?
Not yet. We haven't made it to that level.
That's always fun.
Yeah. But
it's scary too.
That's all I have. If y'all have any questions, I'm open. Other than that, thank you for your time. I just want to give you an update on where we are with each of these.
And what's your Twitter handle?
James P. James P 2448.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Good job.
All right, next item on our agenda is the transportation update. Yeah.
Star said hi.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, welcome. Yeah. Well, so Mark, are you trending? Okay.
Good morning. I wanted to provide you with a few transportation updates. The first one I want to provide you with is the bus driver vacancy report. Currently, we have approximately 22 unfilled positions in the transportation department for drivers. As you can see with the supporting documents that I provided, we do have candidates in the pipeline to fill a lot of those vacancies that we currently have.
So first off, I really like this report. I think it's a topic of conversation that comes up at every SPIC committee meeting, is wanting to see these numbers. So I don't know who put this together, but this is very, very good information that I think the entire board would appreciate having. One of the things that I noticed with the 22, we added a significant number of buses to our routes this year. I think we were in the 200 buses to 85 last school year.
That's correct.
And I think do we have 315 yellow buses or?
So currently we are, I want to say we were at 299.
Okay.
Since the beginning of the school year, we were able to eliminate, I think, roughly 2 buses from the fleet.
So with that being said, I know that we added a significant number of buses back on the road that we were not running last year. And I think some of it had to do with the IB transportation, perhaps, and then the Shiloh Elementary or Shiloh Valley combination. Can you remind me, how many buses did we put back on the road for the IB program? And I think it was in the minutes, Michelle, if you can confirm numbers for me, but I want to know how many for IB were added to the road and how many for Shiloh Valley. I think it was 8, 9.
So currently to date, we have added 4 IB buses for the Marvin program.
And how many total are for IB? Is that 4 total?
4 school
total.
buses, yes,
Okay.
ma'am. And we also added 6 contract routes for the IB program.
Mm-hmm.
For Shiloh Valley, we've added 6 additional buses to the fleet. For Porter Ridge, due to growth, we've added 2 additional buses to the fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Weddington as well, we added 1 additional bus to the fleet. And Cuthbertson area, we added 1 additional bus to the fleet.
The contract routes, those aren't really yellow buses, are they? Or are they?
No, ma'am,
Okay.
they're not
So
yellow
let's
buses.
take that 6 off the list. So we have 10, 12, 14. So we've added 14 buses, i.e. 14 drivers to our daily routes. So when we say that we have 22 vacancies, but we've added 14 additional positions or buses, it may or may not be as bad as what we thought we were back in May when we thought we had 7 or 8 vacancies, is where I'm going. So we've added a lot of routes and put a lot of buses back on the road. So that automatically gives you a deficiency in drivers.
That's correct.
Yes.
At the beginning of the school year, when we added the 14 buses, I think we may have been roughly 12 to 14 drivers short. So when we added those additional buses, that just added to the vacancy that we've had going into beginning of the school year.
So when we had 8 vacancies in May, and we are where we are today, we're kind of in the same boat. Yeah. So I'll let you pick up from there, but I thought it was very, very important to really, break down what is the 22. Because we chose to put a lot of buses back on the roads to improve efficiency,
Get ridership numbers up.
to reduce to get ridership back up. And the bus driver shortage is not a Union County challenge. It is a North Carolina challenge. It is a national challenge. And so I would just encourage everyone here today to really understand, we chose to put all these buses back on the roads in the midst of struggling to, finding people who want to drive buses. So really the net difference here today really is being short 8 drivers, and I just want to commend your staff. I know we've had a lot of conversations with Mark Strickland. We have been your staff, not we, your staff has been extremely creative in trying to find people, whether, it's child nutrition, teacher assistants, people within our employment status that would be willing to step outside the classroom and help us out and fill these vacancies. So thank you for getting creative and thinking outside of the box.
I would like to say thank you for your support, as well as recognizing that we do intensively, try to fulfill all of our vacancies. So thank you for your support.
Keep being creative though, because we still have 8 vacancies. So.
And on that, do you have any kind of updates as far as did ridership go up this year? Because I think we do have some shortened route times, right? From, first stop to last stop. Are we seeing more people riding the bus or about the same, or what are you seeing there?
That's a great question. Last week, we were actually in the midst of our annual DPI head count. And so with the incident of last Friday, may skew the numbers. So we may have to go back and do a recount. But according to what we have in the routing department, we actually added kids. I want to say about 2,000 to 3,000 additional kids from where we were last year. And those are kids that are actually requested transportation, have actually been assigned to a bus, but it's not our actual head count, meaning it's not the kids that we actually count on the buses every day. But that's what we have in our database right now.
So in other words, you're still verifying head count.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I thought you were going to say 200 to 300 additional students. That kind of threw me when you said 2,000 to 3,000 additional students are requesting transportation.
And I believe, Mr. Watson, I thought I heard you tell me that at the very first week of school, or either the week prior, we processed over 1,500 over 2,000 new rider forms, whatever we call that, but new requests, I guess.
That is correct.
Speaking of the forms, is that easier now? I thought we kind of streamlined that too.
We have, and
Okay.
yes, it is much easier. Students request transportation from the school level.
Mhm.
That information is entered into Power School, and it's gone through a traffic process from Power School to our routing software, and we receive that through a nightly import, and we receive work orders the next morning to assign students. So yes, within the first week of school, we assign nearly 2,000 students to a bus the first week of school.
And that's as opposed to last year when you were getting faxes from the school. And
Yes, sir.
yeah,
And it
That's
gives us
correct.
better data because we're getting that information out of Power School now.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
nice.
Keep in mind, I want to make sure I make this point. So, at that point in the game, the routes have been put together. And so when you have an influx of that many students requesting transportation, it's a huge effort to get routes changed, buses added, moved around. It kind of throws a wrench in things.
And in an attempt to ensure that all kids had a bus assignment the first day of school, we actually did like a transportation session with different clusters so that parents could come in and request transportation prior to open house, which would give us additional time to get kids on buses as well.
Or you could even do a Connect Ed in the future, because our bus drivers start running their routes, 2 or 3 weeks before school starts, or sooner than that?
This year, I think we started a week before school
A week before,
started.
because I know I saw them in my community practicing their routes. So perhaps we could tie that in going forward with a Connect Ed or Peach Jar communication or something like that, to let parents know to check their power school and, let us know in advance before open house that their student will be requesting transportation. That's just 2 ideas that, might be helpful.
Thank you.
So we are going to perform another study, though, to try to find out what ridership is looking like.
Yes, sir. I have to reach out to DPI to schedule another date because they approve the dates that we actually do the annual head count. This week may not be the best week only because we have year round, which is WOOF.
Mm-hmm.
They're out of session this week. And so we may have to schedule it 2 weeks from this week so that we get accurate numbers and everyone is in session at the time.
And based on, you're probably going to need those numbers in order to try to come up with an estimated efficiency rating. Is that correct?
Well, what will happen is that those numbers will be submitted, and then if the buses don't run over 90 days, that's the threshold. So if we're at 299 when we submit our numbers in I want to say February or March, then that will fit into the efficiency. So it's about the number of buses that you have on the road as well as the ridership.
Okay. Do you have, I'm assuming we have the formula and we can try to do some type of estimation, right, to see where we are?
Yes, sir. We can definitely do that. We do have a simulation tool that is provided by DPI where we can plug in the numbers as far as ridership, the number of buses, as well as the expenditures that we encountered last year because we go off last year's expenditures.
Okay. If I could just ask for next SPIT meeting that you bring those numbers to us, I'd love to see where we are.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So getting back to this report, it is color coded, yellow, blue, and green. Does the 22 do the 22 vacancies take into account the names that we see in yellow and blue that are in the process of making it on the road and in a bus?
Yes, ma'am. So with the color code that we provided, the candidates that are listed in green, they are just waiting on HR approval, meaning they've already had their driver's license checked. They've been drug tested. They've been through the entire process. Now HR has to review the information that is submitted to them, and then they make that approval.
For example, I just want to be very clear. There's four names here in green. Does that mean we can subtract 4 from the 22?
Yes, ma'am.
And then we have 1, 2, 3,
Three more.
4, 5, 6, 7 in yellow. So that really would we cut 22 in half between the yellow and the green that are in the process of receiving a bus and becoming drivers for us?
I would keep in mind as well, we see the positives on this sheet, but at the same time, we have people that resign all the time.
Mhm.
If you think about the monthly
Well,
HR
we have
reports.
FMLA too.
Right, and so it's a dynamic process.
Mhm.
It's you have to resupply all the
Mhm.
time.
But looking at the glass half full, with those 11 new employees that desire to drive a bus for Union County Public Schools, that would cut our deficiency in half, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Assuming that they make it through the HR process and everything.
Right, and if we don't have resignations, you know, in the interim. So
We-
that's what happens. It's a fluid number.
Mhm.
You know, we recruit and hire new, but at the same time, we have people leave for other reasons. So it's a really ongoing process all the time.
And I think the other item that we have to be mindful of is when we have the call outs, you know, the daily call outs, and that just kind of increases your shortages as well, but just the daily call outs. And just
I was trying to help you out there. I mean, because this is encouraging, seeing this report and seeing how many people are applying and progressing towards driving a bus for Union County Public Schools is very encouraging.
So bottom line, yes, if you look at these 11 folks that are in process today at 8/11, that number would be 11 in terms of your vacancies, assuming those all get processed. That number could change tomorrow. It could change next week, but as of today, that would be 11 if they're all processed and through.
And always remembering that we chose to add 14 additional routes this school year. So, you know, we need more drivers, but I think your team is really doing a great job. So, do we have incentive bonuses for our existing drivers to recruit friends or family members that would like to do what they do and drive a bus for Union County Public Schools?
Yes, we do have an incentive program, and it's not just limited to drivers. Mechanics can make referrals as well. Office staff can make referrals, and that bonus is approximately $200 if the employee comes in and work 90 days. And so we've honored that program for, I think, 2 years now, and we vetted the process, and the program does work, and it works well if we have drivers as well as transportation staff to take advantage of it.
Does that apply to school board members also?
I just want to say I appreciate the creativity that you guys are using. And I also want to say I appreciate the folks that have stepped up, you know, and are now driving a bus for us. And I think that's a great direction to move in, especially last Friday. And also the bus drivers that ran 2 routes last Friday, the way they stepped up. We don't need to forget those folks, and we need to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, and the creativity that you brought to the table, just so everybody's aware, is the fact that you can have dual roles within the school, right? So teacher assistants being asked to drive. Likewise, with regards to, you know, to drivers getting enough hours, they have the ability to also be dual employed, right? So they can park that bus at their final drop and actually work at that school and be a child nutritionist, be a custodian, be a teacher assistant, be something that they're qualified for. And they do have the ability to apply to get those additional hours. So
They do. We reach out to those auxiliary staff people all the time. And we comment to our bus drivers as well that, you know, there are opportunities within the system already that can be pursued. So you're correct. We push that.
Okay, what's the rough percentage of dual roles?
I can't give you a solid number, but it's not high.
Okay. I mean,
we just
historically, when I was in school, it seemed like that was really high, you know?
So in Union County, what I've understood is that years ago, there was a higher percentage.
Mhm.
And then for whatever reason, that went down. Maybe because they didn't need as many drivers, I'm not sure. But we see it as a viable option to lessen the impact of driver vacancies and provide additional employment for our existing employees.
So I know a lot of attention this past week, or not even a week, has been around our TAs that chose to work in our schools all day long and help us out and fill these vacancies. Has there been a significant number of TAs that opted to do this for Union County?
We had initially 3, and when we say TA, that's a broad category. You know, TA, instructional assistant, you know,
Tutors.
tutors, those kinds of staff people, they are typically people that work a full-time job with us during the week. And I wanted to take the opportunity to, in many cases, in some cases, quit other jobs that they were already working and come to work with us, and help out Team UCPS. And so we've had a few. We're continuing to reach out to others. I've met personally with two of the ones that we have gotten on board, and we'll be reaching out to others as well.
Okay, so I want to be clear on what I just heard. Okay, so everything that happened on Friday and the things that were on social media was because 3 TAs agreed to fill bus driver vacancies for Union County Public Schools.
I can't comment about if that's what happened and why, but I can confirm that we did have 3 that had agreed to drive for us out of the group that, we had reached out to, and we continue to reach out. Just know that, I'm going to child nutrition this afternoon. I'm going to talk to them again, as I've done since I've gotten here. We're looking at custodians that may want other opportunities to supplement their income. We're looking in the areas where we have a hard time getting drivers, such in the western part, and we've identified the part-time custodians in those schools and are reaching out to them one-on-one to see if they want to help us out and drive a bus.
I love the interaction with the teacher assistants and folks that have classroom knowledge with these kids. The familiarity, yes, the familiarity of dealing with these situations. That's a plus on both ends. I really want us to move in that. I know you are. We've got to find ways to encourage that more. It's just amazing to me. We're only at 3, and as you said, that 3 has led to disinformation going out and creating a problem. I
assumed it was
absolutely.
Big number.
Absolutely.
We'd like it to be larger. We're working on it just to reduce the vacancies. So we're moving ahead.
And I have 2 Union County Public School students that have been through the system. I mean, everyone loves the custodian. I mean, how awesome would that be if we had custodians that wanted to drive the bus, and they got to see that driver when they walked up on the bus at the end of the day or first thing in the morning on the way to school. I think that is a great strategy, great idea.
And I would add one additional item. Those 3 that actually came and filled the void, they were already certified. When I say certified, they already had their CDLs. So it made an immediate impact on getting kids either to school or getting kids home.
Are there others then that are actually in the pipeline that are going through a certification?
We're actually searching through the DMV database to see how many people we have that could actually help fill that void as well. Yes, sir.
Like you're cross-referencing
To find out
that?
who hasn't stepped up.
Some targeted recruitment efforts.
Okay.
I mean, even if you have them as a backup, that's a great option. So,
How long does it take to get a CDL?
So roughly, probably close to 20 days. They have 3 days of classroom training, and once they get their permit, then they have a 14-day waiting period before they could actually go out and be certified behind the wheel.
Okay.
anything else, transportation?
So I think we talked about the Shiloh merger. Wanted to share with you the additional buses that we added to the road, as well as the Marvin IB program, as well as the Ridership. And I think Ms. Benton has the Ridership currently for the IB program.
If I may, I want to mention just quickly the Shiloh Valley. That has gone so well. I think many of us, at least myself, we are surprised. I mean, I think it's due to the hard work, planning, preparation, both on the transportation department, but just as importantly, and maybe more so, the school both schools did an outstanding job of planning that entire process. And just from our slice of the pie, the transportation piece, I believe it's going really well.
Okay, for the IB students, we currently have 48 students that are assigned out of the Marvin Ridge attendance area. The students that are assigned to a bus that are IB students within the Marvin Ridge attendance area, those students are not identified because they're within the cluster anyway. So it's 48 that are assigned out of the cluster, and 9 of those are on a contract vehicle.
Okay, so you have 48 that have requested bus transportation. How many are actually on the bus using the bus transportation? Not the contract services, but how many of the 48 are actually getting on the bus and riding the bus, and their parents didn't decide, I'll just drive you?
We'll know that with our head count.
So what's your head count?
Well, we're in the process of
Okay.
of doing that head count. We'll have to do a recount
Okay,
once DVI
gotcha.
approves that.
Gotcha. So I definitely would like to find out, 40 signed up for it, but did mom or dad start driving them, or did they find a friend that they could start riding with? So I think that'll be, yeah, so definitely make a note to bring that back to us.
Just so I'm clear, that does not include any Marvin students, right? Like those are, okay.
Outside of the Marvin cluster.
The other item that we wanted to share was the actual kids that are assigned to a bus versus student enrollment. We currently have 31,096 kids assigned, and total enrollment that we have is 42,754.
What's the first number again?
The first number is 31,096 kids that we have currently assigned to buses, and total enrollment is 42,754. The next item is probably, the next item I would like to discuss is gated communities, and I would like to, for the committee as well as the superintendent to ask for support when we have new communities that are gated communities. We would ask for your support in either the community having a gate that is on a timer or a gate that has a sensor so that the buses can access those neighborhoods. And if they don't have that, if we could have a community stop at the top of the neighborhood because of the inability to be able to access those neighborhoods.
How many gated communities, do you know the number of gated because I can only think of 2 or 3.
No, ma'am, I don't have the number of gated communities, but I know we have, in particular, I know there's one bus where we have at least 3 remotes or 3 gate clickers to get into that community. And the issue that we have is if the battery is dead, if the bus breaks down in the middle of the route.
Or if that bus is getting maintenance, an
Correct.
oil change, tires.
And if we have a sub driver on the bus, and it just creates some logistical issues. And we're just wanting to ask, moving forward, if we could have those communities to supply us with either a timer or a sensor. I will say one community that I'm very familiar with, Providence Downs, they just added gates and they just added a sensor, so we don't have to carry remotes. It actually recognizes the bus when it pulls up to the gate to allow us to be able to freely access those students within the neighborhood.
So you said one in particular.
It's more secure
Have
also.
you reached out to that community? I don't know if they have a homeowners association or whatever, but have you personally reached out to that community to see if they can put a sensor in, or do you want board members to help with that, or?
Well, we have quite a few communities with quite a few gated communities, and I can't give you the number. I can give it to you at the next meeting, but we do have quite a few established communities that have gates that we have to.
And a lot of those gates are not manned.
Correct.
So there's not
Yes,
like
ma'am.
there's someone there that can open it.
Yes, ma'am. That is correct.
But again, are you reaching out to the gated communities to see if they can put a sensor in, or what's your plan for that?
Usually when that happens, if they have a gated community, we always have a parent that contact us to see how we can access the kids, and then we get the information of the HOA And we try to reach out to the HOA as well as the parents to let them know that, there is a barrier when we can't get into the community to access, the
Well,
stops.
I would say that, a lot of our board members are liaisons to the different municipalities and communities. And, believe it or not, we get those phone calls and emails. And so, I would encourage you to reach out to me or any of our board members, look on our website and see who the liaison is for that area. And that's why we're here, is to help, between the families and the community and staff. I think the board members would be happy to step in and help facilitate that for you.
And we could also work with the towns and municipalities to put in their ordinances, if they build a new subdivision, it has to be a sensor.
That's certainly an ask on our part.
I mean, it benefits us, it benefits the neighborhood because it's more secure for the neighborhood. One, I mean, it identifies the bus being there.
Right. And this effort is about efficiency and timeliness, and not being late when you don't have the clickers on the bus or the ability to get in there. We're just trying to streamline it as much as possible.
So
Marlon, I'd like, as a next step, I'd like for you to possibly consider coming up with a 1-page or a 2-page document that lists the name of the gated community, the municipality that it is in, contact information if you have it, and the board member that's associated with that as the liaison to provide to this committee and even the full board for review, if that's possible.
I'm more than happy to help you with that.
Thank you.
Because I know too, with the fire departments and police, emergency management, there's ordinances they have to be able to get into. So I mean, we could tap on that also. All right. Anything else for transportation?
So I have two additional items, and I'll promise you I will get out your hair. We also wanted to talk about having some community stops in some of your neighborhoods. And when I say community stops, we don't want all neighborhood kids to come to the very front of the community, but we want to reduce some of the stops that we make inside the community. We do have a state board policy where we shouldn't create routes less than 0.2 of a mile unless there's a safety concern. But as we evaluate routes every year, we identify that we do have numerous stops in numerous neighborhoods, and we would like to reduce some of those stops in the neighborhoods where kids could access those stops, and they'd be less than 0.2 of a mile. For them to access it, it'll be 0.2 of a mile. I'm sorry, not less than, but it will be 0.2 of a mile, and we can follow the state guidelines that has been set forth.
We've had this discussion before, and I think the board supported you in that request. I can only think of one neighborhood at the moment that has, challenged us on that issue. But many years ago, we had a gas shortage, and we reduced, or we started having community stops because we could not have our buses going in and out of every cul-de-sac, and so we started having community stops. I'm going to use my community as the example, Emerald Lake. When we first moved here 15 years ago, the bus came right to our cul-de-sac, and the kids got on the bus. But after the gas shortage, that stopped. And Union County Public Schools notified my family and our neighborhood, and I'm sure many, many other families and neighborhoods, where our new stop would be. And that stop still exists today. And I can tell you as a board member, for the last decade, I cannot see the bus stop from my home. And I've never had a problem with that. And so, again, I think we had this conversation last year. I mentioned the gas shortage, my living example. It wasn't a problem then. It hasn't been a problem for the last 10 years. I support you in reducing stops. And if anyone else wants to make a comment, I mean, if that helps us in our efficiency and being able to get kids, to school on time, and by all means, let's do community stops
Yeah.
in multiple spots,
turn-
and absolutely not the front of the neighborhood.
Yeah, turning the bus around in the cul-de-sac's not easy, not to mention all the mailboxes hit,
Mailboxes,
cars hit potentially as they're parked in
landscaping.
there.
So I think we got away.
vehicles.
We got away from some of that, and for whatever reason, we're just trying to tighten things up. We just want to become as efficient as we can be, reduce our need for drivers, but we would ask for your support in following the guidelines that are already in place.
You have our support.
Yeah, and your examples, I mean, they are, cost analysis, but I know one of the big things that I've been challenging, and, you stepped up to the plate this year, is how do we reduce the route times, right? And I don't see anything on here about how much time we're saving per route, but it's got to be, a half hour per route at least, I would think. And that means the kid doesn't have to be at the bus at 5:54 in the morning, right? Like, I mean, we get later pickup times in the morning, we get earlier drop-off times in the afternoon by reducing these miles run and not covering every square inch of roadway in our county.
In the big picture, that's absolutely true, but we're nipping away at it now, so it's going to take some time to actually realize some of those huge efficiencies, but we are trying to move towards that.
I don't know how we got away from cul-de-sacs during the gas shortage, but I think we need to revisit that.
And I would think you would have much better reception to shorten these routes than you're going to have to maybe a little inconvenience on the, I mean, because the biggest complaint I think we would hear would be the length of routes,
Or the early
pickup time. That's
Yeah.
right.
You'd be amazed at some of the things we hear.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, no, we would.
I don't know.
And I guess moving on with time, what was the last item you had?
So the last item is probably the best item for me. I'll share with you the 1819 state inspection. Again, Union County is in the top 10 in the central region. We've been in the top 10 the last 3 years. Also want to make note that we've had two mechanics that came in 7th and 8th place as the best inspectors in the state. So those are two things that I wanted to mention to the board as well as the superintendent. And we just continue to do a great job of keeping our buses well maintained. The supporting documents that I presented you didn't have the highlighted version, so I would like to supply you the highlighted version so you can see the central region compared to other regions that we've always been under the state average each year. Just wanted to share that information with you.
No, that is great. So when you say in the top 10, what were we?
This year we were number 10. I want to say last year we were number 9, and the year before we were either 8 or 9.
Is there any chance you could bring those two mechanics to our board meeting so that you can do that and let us thank them for their work and let the board shake their hand?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
That's great for the number of buses we have.
And if you look at that inspection sheet, more of your smaller counties have the lower scores. They have less buses to look at and may have additional staff, but your larger counties, if you want to do a fair comparison, you look at your larger counties, and I think we fare very well compared to other larger counties our size or bigger.
Yeah, please get in touch maybe with Tahira and Donna Malarkey, and let's make sure we congratulate the two mechanics for their work, and all the other mechanics too, but especially those two.
That concludes my transportation updates. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Watson. All right, next item on the agenda will be the program evaluation.
So I've been asked to give you an update on something that's relatively new. And this is early in the game with program evaluation. Kind of walk you through a timeline. Dr. Houlihan and I, along with several other members of our team, met early July. We talked about his vision for program evaluation. And we provided a one-page document in your packet that speaks to program evaluation and kind of our timeline. We have partnered with Hanover Research, who is out of Virginia, and we are in the process of working through and looking at several different programs for year one and then sustaining that year 2, year 3, and year 4. If you look at, of course, you can see the descriptors there. A couple of things to keep in mind as we move forward. The first program that we're working with and we're engaged with Hanover now currently is the addition to the counseling program within Union County Public Schools. And you may ask why at this point in time we're going ahead and looking at the additional counselors, because we just rolled out the additional 9 counselors. We're trying to gather some baseline data so we can move forward and look throughout the course of the year what the impact does that actually have on our counseling program and our comprehensive high schools. So we're in the process now. Hanover's developing some surveys. We've been in constant conversation with them. I spoke to them yesterday. We're working through some data sharing agreements because, of course, anytime we share student data and they provide information, we have to make sure that that's completely confidential. I worked with Ms. Morris yesterday and talked through some of the requests just to make sure that we have exactly in place the parameters for us to share and coordinate. And then you can see Project 2 and 3 has been proposed, college readiness measures across K-12, along with career readiness. And the 4th program we hope to do this year is yet to be determined. A little bit about the process of how we're going to identify these projects. One, hopefully next week at our academics team meeting, we're going to come up with a list of projects that we currently have going on, because in a district this size, there may be many projects that we're engaged with that we're just not fully aware of, need to be evaluated. We're going to start with academics, and then we're going to move, hopefully early October, to meet with the cabinet and have each cabinet member come to us with a list of projects that they have going on in their area of focus. And then, of course, come back to Dr. Houlihan and just come up with a game plan for the programs that we are going to evaluate. You know, really the process here is ongoing. It's not a one and done deal. So a couple of things that I have on my notes here is baseline is for continual improvement to make sure we're getting a return on investment for the things and the items that we're engaged with. Systematic and ongoing. And really, when I met with our counselors last week, I just mentioned the idea about counseling. Of course, some of their eyes got really big. And what I spoke to them, I said, we're not evaluating to eliminate. One, we're evaluating to substantiate what's going on and the additional counseling positions, but also, we're also looking for best practices. One thing that's come up early on with our counseling evaluation is the fact that we currently don't have a systematic way that each counselor across our district documents when they meet with the student. They all have a process, but it's not systematic and it's not the same. So when we're collecting this data up front, you know, it may come in the form of many different forms. So I do think it's going to be a good thing. This is really just an update, and there'll be a lot more information to come. I do think that the additional counseling evaluation, the baseline data will be provided for us through their evaluation sometime in November. I think October will be the timeline where they get approved on the evaluation.
Have we used Hanover in the past?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. What was the selection criteria for choosing them?
So I do understand members of our team had spoken with them prior to me coming on board. Then I was engaged with several conversations, phone conferences with them and other companies. I do believe they are, I believe they're the best company that we engaged with. I do believe they provide us with a lot of documentation of other research projects they have done with other districts of similar size or larger. I think they have the capacity to do what we're asking them to do in an ongoing manner. The several of the other companies, they would take one project at a time. They didn't want to engage with the district for ongoing systematic evaluations.
Okay, and we are identifying the programs and providing it to them, or they are?
We are identifying the programs and providing them the programs we would like evaluated.
Okay, and is this, like, what's the timeline for this to be complete?
So it'll be ongoing. My intent is, of course, we signed on with them for 1 year. They had multiple options, so we could, sign on for multiple years. We made a determination to sign on for 1 year to see how this year goes, because it's something totally new. We'd like to continue to do 3 to 4 projects yearly, and then make those evaluations available publicly, just for full transparency. So,
Yeah, so I think where I'm going with this is we were hoping to get some results, right, to incorporate it to this year's budget planning.
Yeah, and ideally, the goal would be that we identify these projects or programs usually in May or June to begin that process, so that we get them back no later than March, early April at the very latest. We're on a little bit of an expedited timeline because we kind of didn't start this process until later in the summer. So our communication with them, I'm assuming, has been, we want to, if we're going to identify these 3 areas, we want the evaluations back before April 1 at the latest. So we've told them this is a fast track for year 1, because we want it to be incorporated with other decision-making processes that we have. But I think moving on after this year, we'll get into a much better cycle of identification and rollout and evaluation.
And it's typically 6
Does that make sense?
weeks to evaluate a
Yeah.
program. 6 to 8 weeks for them to evaluate a program.
And are you, the goal behind this was truly to find, are we getting the ROI behind the investment, right? So are you identifying, like, I'm sure there's some that are blatant, we're getting an ROI, right? So those are ones that are going to be selected. It's the ones that have some ambiguity about it, or?
I don't know. I think we're still trying to figure that piece out with them. The ones that we're looking at are high dollar, high leverage, high expectation programs that we've put a lot of time, energy, effort in, that we want to look at what has that ROI been based on key performance indicators that we're developing alongside of Hanover. And so that's really the goal, I think, for us as a system, is to say, here is what we've invested our funding in, our time in, our resources in. What's been our return on that? And if it is low return, what are our possibilities? If it's high return, what does that mean for our kids, for our families, or whatever that program's intended to yield? So really, it's about continuous improvement. It's to reflect on kind of where we've been and help us inform our decision-making processes. And to Dr. Tyson's point, where we can learn really good best practices that we need to take to scale.
No, I appreciate you doing this. And we have had a huge influx of counselors come on board, right? So actually standardizing that process, and the timing is perfect, right?
Yeah, and I
the
think
big influx has been this year.
And if you remember, when we had our accreditation a few years ago, or a year and a half or so ago, this was the one area they said that if you're going to improve upon anything, you really need to work on some systemic program evaluation process. And so, we're taking that feedback and obviously acting on that.
So the first thing that comes to my mind when I hear this is a lot of new initiatives and programs come to us through the curriculum committee. So are those the type of programs that you're thinking about, researching to find out? For example, the first thing that comes to mind is Spire or
Naviance.
Yeah, Naviance. That's a big topic of discussion. Because we're spending hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars on a lot of different programs. So is that what you're referring to?
That is.
Investigating?
Yes. And so when you think about the bottom 2 bullets on that page under college readiness, you probably could list about 10 to 15 different quote unquote projects or programs, advanced placement, SAT expansion, PSAT, all these kinds of things we've been doing around college readiness. The same for career readiness, your academy programs, your teacher externship, internship, apprenticeship, all these kinds of stuff that goes into initiatives and programs So they're big level buckets you see, but underneath them would be exactly from an academic standpoint, those specific programs. Now, once we get through this year and identify kind of a annual cycle, you could throw other non-academic programs in there, such as your EPIC grant, such as our focus school effort, such as transportation department. I mean, there's other non-academic. We're just starting on the academic basis now to begin the process.
Anything that we can do to become more efficient, and this is a step in the right direction, because we spend a lot of money on a lot of programs, and if they're not performing, then we need to locate the programs that are.
Or if they're not user friendly and
Exactly.
students and parents have never heard of it and don't know how to use it, then maybe that's money that we could spend somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And remember, it's we all know this is such a high performing, great school system. What are those programs that are helping to contribute to that? A big question I have as a big program is teacher staff development. We've never really systematically evaluated the types and levels of trainings that we provide to teachers. We know they're making an impact, but how do you quantify that? So this is a very long list that we're just now beginning to compile, but we've got to get this ball rolling and get it started somewhere.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item is our next meeting date.
The next meeting date.
Actually, sorry, this item is to be taken to the full board,
Yeah.
which only thing I have is the strategic plan presentation. Now, next meeting date.
October 23rd at 7:30 a.m.
Okay, our next meeting will be October 23rd at 7:30 a.m.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Well, we had one item on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
We need to go into closed session to discuss personnel pursuant North Carolina General Statute 143.318.11A1.
Okay.
Need a motion?
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.